Double breaking news, double breaking news, folks. That's right. I know I said I was supposed to be taking a break. I understand that, but guess what? We have some things that we have to talk about, all right? Jaire Alexander and Germaine Pratt get released. So we have to talk about which teams will work for Germaine Pratt as well as for Jaire Alexander, the financials for both teams, as well as how does the Jaire Alexander situation affect Jalen Ramsey's situation? All right. All of this and more on the 82nd episode of the Football Junkies podcast. All right. I am your host with the most. I am your chief Bagrodamus. I am your chief head of the table. Anything and everything related to the bag, conspiracy theories, trades, you name it, we covered over here at the Football Junkies podcast. I am your GM who currently is not on a team right now, but don't you worry about it because you know why? I'm still being fed with a whole bunch of information that I cannot release to you because if I do, I might lose my credibility and my sources. But guess what? I am all these things and more. But most importantly, the most important thing that you must remember is I am your host, Kale. So you already know how these things are about to go. So guess what? On three, one, two, three, let's lock in. All right, folks, let's just get into the meat and potatoes of everything that is going on in the league right now. So, before we get into the Jaire Alexander talk, let's talk about Germaine Pratt. So, Germaine Pratt has been released today. Better yet, I think it just happened maybe about 5 or 10 minutes ago prior to this recording. So, let's just get into everything. So, to start things off, Germaine Pratt requested a trade for the Bengals a long time ago. From him requesting a trade up until now, there has been no information or no progress of a resolution for that entire situation until now. Now, when we look at the financials for this entire move, the Bengals save $5.6 million in cap space and take on $2.3 million in dead cap. His market value, according to SpotRack, is 2 years, $17.9 million, which is $9 million a year. Here's the thing. When you look at his 2023 and 2024 season, combined, not separate, but combined, 143 solo tackles, 2 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, say that 3 times, 9 pass deflections, 2 fumble recoveries, 4 interceptions, and 12 tackles for loss. He's been a really productive inside linebacker. And if we're being real here, 2 years, 17.9 million, $9 million a year, that's not bad. That's really not bad at all. So I don't understand why the Bengals would make this type of move, but I'm not surprised because why? The Bengals continue to do bad business. Now, granted, I understand that you have more superstars on the offense in Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. I get that. But you also have to take care of the defense as well because if you don't, guess what's going to happen? You are going to have to basically outshoot your opponent every single week, and you won't be able to do that. Your defense is going to have to make some plays, and they can't do that if you don't have anybody there. Now, granted, I understand that they drafted an inside linebacker in Demetrius Knight, but you don't know what you're getting out of him. Germaine Pratt is proven. He's been proven for the past few years. On one hand, it's great for Germaine Pratt because he's able to go and latch onto a team before training camp, which is great. But at the same time, this weakens the Bengals even more because guess what? You already have a bad situation with Trey Hendrickson. Now that you've released Germaine Pratt, everyone is going to be looking at you with a side eye. Because there are going to be some people on that defense as well. They're going to be looking for money too. And guess what? There's no need for them to go to y'all because why? Y'all don't care about the defense. So at some point, somebody is going to have to be the bigger person in the room and say, listen, we have to take people on both sides of the ball. Do we have to give them market value? Probably not. Can we try to at least, save a little bit of money? We can try. But what you cannot do is just let people go willy-nilly and thinking, oh, okay, well, we'll sort itself out. No, it doesn't work like that. That's why you see a lot of people not really interested in playing for the Bengals because why? They have had a reputation for a very long time, prior to probably I was born, of just doing bad business. A very cheap run organization. I think the Bengals are so cheap. I guarantee you, if you ask the player, do they charge you for food? Do they charge you for I don't know, getting a new pair of socks, I guarantee you they'll flip you a bill for it. I wouldn't be surprised. That's how bad the Bengals have been. Now, when we look at things from another perspective of what would be the best situation for Germaine Pratt, I can already tell you one team that would definitely love him, the Colts. And the only reason why I say that is because his former defensive coordinator is now the defensive coordinator for the Colts. So I think if you plug him in, it's home. Because he already knows that system. He's familiar with all the cadences and formations and all the things that come with the defense. So I think that would be an instant upgrade for the inside linebacker position for the Colts. Now, if you want to take things for a few other teams, you could possibly put in maybe the Steelers if they're interested. Because, division rival. Maybe he wants to enact his revenge on the Bengals. Maybe you can go after the Chiefs. There are a few teams that Germaine Pratt can go to. Now, are you going to make a lot of money? Probably not. But the question is this. Are you ring chasing or are you bag chasing? And just looking at the available inside linebackers, you have C.J. Mosley, Jawan Bentley, Devondre Campbell, Eric Kendricks, Neville Hewitt, Chris Barnes, Matthew Adams, Tyler Malakavich, Chandler Wooten, Chance Campbell, Quan Alexander, Raekwon McMillan. Sure, there are some pretty good inside linebackers, but you have the advantage because you're only 29 years old. Whereas C.J. Mosley, he's 32. Eric Kendricks, he's 33. Neville Hewitt, he's 32. There's a mixture of old but somewhat young inside linebackers. So if I'm Germaine Pratt, I'm going to take my time, but I'm not going to be very slow with this decision. I need to make a list of at least 5 teams that I'm interested right now and start getting on the phone with them because mandatory minicamp is this week for a lot of teams. And then everybody takes a break and then, training camp begins. So between now and the start of training camp, you want to at least be in active contract talks with at least 3 teams. Because right now, this is the perfect time for you to strike. Now, granted, you may not get as much money as you probably want, but guess what? If you're put into a better opportunity where you could compete and possibly win a ring, who really cares? Because guess what? Come next offseason, you can cash in. Now, I'm not saying you're going to reset the inside linebacker market, but you can make a pretty decent amount of money. Just saying. Now, let's get into the part where everybody wants to talk about, and that is the whole Jaire Alexander situation. So, before we get into all the intangibles, let's talk about what led up to this. So, this started last season, where Jaire was suspended for his conduct, and then he was able to come back to the team, which then escalates into trade talks during this offseason prior to the draft of him possibly going to the Seahawks or a few different teams, and then that sort of dies down after the draft, and then it starts to pick up a little bit, and then it dies down. So it's going through its highs and lows. And then ultimately, today, actually this morning specifically, they decided to release Jaire Alexander. So according to Albert Breer, the Packers offered Jaire a reduced 1-year deal that would make him a free agent in 2026, but Jaire turned it down. The team tried trading him during the draft and were unsuccessful. Now, according to Jordan Schultz, the Packers and the Bills had trade talks but were unsuccessful. Case in point, that's why the Bills drafted Maxwell Harrison in the first round. Now, when we look at the financials that come with this move, the release leaves dead cap hits of $7.5 million this year and then $9.5 million next year. But it saves the Packers $17.1 million this year and $17.5 million next year. Here's the crazy thing about this. This is the statement that the GM of the Packers, Mark Murphy, put out not too long ago. And I quote, "He has been a great player for us. Obviously, elite talent. Unfortunately, just injured a lot. Unfortunately, that's a big part of the game," end quote. But here's the part that may ruffle some feathers, though. And I quote, "We've been used to playing without Alexander." Now, this comes from Pro Football Talk reporter Josh Alper. My takeaway from all this information is the Packers are ready to move on from Jaire. For one reason or the other, they were just ready to be done with Jaire Alexander. And granted, I understand dealing with a superstar is a lot. I understand that sometimes it can be draining. I understand sometimes that if you don't have the locker room to keep superstars in check, it can make your life a living hell. But what you do not do is go public with your statement and say something like this, because I'm telling you, you are going to eat your words. There's not a whole bunch of Jaire Alexanders just walking around. He's a one-of-one type of talent. He's a playmaking type of talent that you cannot replicate. There isn't anybody in free agency or available for a trade or is going to be in next year's draft class that can replicate what Jaire can do. Granted, I understand that he hasn't been able to stay healthy for the last 2 years. I get that. But some players go through that phase. It happens. Could their health be because of, attrition? Could it be because of the climate that they're playing in? It could be a plethora of different things. But what you don't do is give up on someone, especially someone like a Jaire Alexander. Let me just read to you a stat that I found from NFL Pro. So when he is on the field, opposing quarterbacks threw for 7 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, recording a 77.5 passer rating. But when Jaire Alexander isn't on the field, quarterbacks threw for 15 touchdowns, 8 picks, and had a 95.3 passer rating. Let's go a little bit deeper than that. During the 2024 season, when Jaire was on the field, the Packers have allowed a 9.7 lower completion percentage, which is 61%, compared to when he's off the field, which is 70.7%. I'm sorry. Those stats right there should already tell you that this isn't just your ordinary type of corner. You didn't just pay him just because he had 1 or 2 really good seasons. You paid him as a franchise corner, and it shows with the stats. There is nobody on the Packers right now that can do exactly what Jaire Alexander was able to do. When we look at his stats from the past 2 seasons, I'm going to go with 2024 first. 16 tackles. He was targeted 30 times and allowed 17 receptions for 244 yards and 2 touchdowns. And in doing so, he got 2 picks. Now, in the 2023 season, he had 27 tackles and was targeted 33 times and allowed 23 receptions for 270 yards and 2 touchdowns. The stats speak for themselves, folks. The stats that I just read showed you how much of an impact Jaire Alexander had on the field. You are talking about somebody whose effect is similar to what of a pass rusher, an elite pass rusher. We've all seen the record of the Steelers when TJ Watt is on the field and when he isn't on the field. The best way to describe this move is the Packers cut their nose to spite their face. They said, we cannot deal with you for another moment, for another day, for another training camp, for another mini camp. We can't deal with you with anything. We are willing to just let you go and be somebody's headache. But this is the price of having a superstar, regardless of the position on your team. When you have a superstar, you're going to have to deal with these type of antics in some capacity. Now, there are some superstars who are a little bit more humble, and then there are others who are a little bit more outspoken, especially when there's a little bit of discourse between them and the organization. Let me just read to you the depth chart right now for the Packers when it comes to their corners. So outside of Jaire Alexander, they have Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine, Micah Robinson, Kamal Hayden, Isaiah Dunn, Jonathan Baldwin, and Tyron Herring. No disrespect to any of those men, but they cannot hold a candle to what Jaire Alexander was able to do on the field. Do you believe in any of those corners can hold their own against a Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Roma Dunze, DJ Moore, Luther Burden, Jordan Addison, Jameson Williams? No. So why would you make this premature move when you don't have a succession plan in place? It'll be one thing if you address cornerback 1 in the draft, in free agency, via trade, any different type of way. But you didn't do that. And now you put yourself in harm's way because guess what? You are in a division, and I want to continue to say this, and I will continue to say this until the cows come home. You are in a division where you have Justin Jefferson, Roma Dunze, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Luther Burden, and DJ Moore. You don't have the corners to be able to handle those type of receivers. So either you make a big move now, or you run the possibility of getting exposed throughout the entire season. I don't think you really want to do that. Now, granted, you can go and get someone like a Stephon Gilmore, you can get Russell Douglas, or you can get a few other different types of corners. But can they hold a candle to what Jaire Alexander was able to do for the past few years now? No. Even as hurt as Jaire has been, he is still an effective corner. He's just going through a phase where he hasn't been healthy. Some players go through that. It's perfectly fine. It's not the end of the world. But what you cannot do is just say, you know what? We're just willing to move off of you. We really don't care. Sayonara. We really don't need you. We were better off without you. Like, that was the type of vibe that Mark Murphy was giving off when it came to those quotes. And if I'm Jaire Alexander, I would be so petty and I would sign with the Vikings. Just so I can lock up all your receivers. And every single time I lock up a receiver, every time I get a pick, I'm looking at Mark Murphy's direction. Now, with this move, it does beg the question, what are the Packers trying to do moving forward? Now, I do know Elton Jenkins isn't happy with his current contract situation. I know he's looking for a new contract because I think they're trying to transition him to center. However, they are in a really good spot when it comes to their cap space right now. I'm going to tell you exactly what their cap space is right now. They have $45.4 million in cap space. They are fourth in the league with the most cap space. So what's the problem? Who are they really going to go after? What other positions do they need to address significantly? Now, as we talked about in the last episode that the Packers were interested in Rashad Bateman, I wouldn't be surprised if they were going after another receiver. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going after another corner. I wouldn't be surprised if they are trying to shore up something else on this team because they have a lot of cap space. And just looking at some of their pending free agents for next year, you have Christian Watson, McCole Hardman, John Fitzpatrick, Malik Willis, Trey Hill, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, Bo Milton, Emmanuel Wilson, Messiah Swinson, just to name a few. Now, some of them are restricted free agents and some of them are unrestricted free agents. Now, I know with Romeo Doubs, his market value is $11.9 million according to SpotRack. Before we get into the whole where he should go, if he should go to this team or that team, I think the number one question that needs to be asked is, are you bag chasing or are you ring chasing? Because if you're ring chasing, you're probably going to have to take less. But if you're bag chasing, you already know which teams you need to go to. But if you're ring chasing, though, now we can have a real conversation. The first team that comes to mind is the 49ers. For one, you lost Charvarius Ward in free agency. And two, you have enough cap space to where if you want to give him a multi-year deal, you can do that. And so I think adding Jaire Alexander with Deommodore Lenoir and Renardo Green would shore up the backfield by providing a veteran corner who is proven and can hold his own against number one wide receivers. Let's be honest here. They're in a division that has Marvin Harrison Jr., Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, just to name a few. So I think adding Jaire would definitely help a lot. Now going on to the next team, I feel like the Eagles would also be a good team for Jaire simply because, for one, Cooper DeJean is going back to safety, and you still need another corner along with Quinyon Mitchell. So I think adding him would be great simply because you'll have two lockdown corners that can hold their own. Who wouldn't want that, especially for the Eagles? Now, the financial part, I don't really know about, okay? But I do know this. Howie should probably have some level of interest in Jaire Alexander. Just saying. We don't need to go any further with that, okay? For the next team, Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay should really be interested simply because if you get Jaire Alexander, your defense is complete. You have Jaire Alexander, you have Benjamin Morrison, you have Antoine Winfield Jr., you'll still have Levante David, you have Desmond Watson, you have Vita Vea, Shaq Barrett, Hassan Reddick on the defense. And then on the offense, you'll have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Emeka Buka. You'll still have Bucky Irvin. You'll have Baker Mayfield. You will have a complete team. You will have a team, by the way, that I would venture to say would be a Super Bowl caliber team. Because why? They have been able to beat a lot of the top NFC teams for the last few years. They've held their own against the Eagles as well as the Lions. Just saying. Not to mention, I also have to add this in there, they have $29.8 million in cap space. I think if you give him, I don't know, a 2-year, $10 million deal, and what, 9.5 million is guaranteed, and he can earn the other two based off of playtime and incentives and whatnot, I think that's perfectly fine. Because again, if I'm Jaire Alexander, screw the money. Go for the ring. Because guess what? If you go for the ring and you win the ring, guess what's going to happen? You can go out in free agency again and get another mega contract. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Now let's keep on going. I think Washington should also be interested in Jaire simply because they really haven't effectively addressed the backfield like how I think they should have. I think adding Jaire with Marshawn Lattimore would be great. You are talking about a two-headed monster in the secondary. Not to mention, especially with those divisional games, you'll have Marshawn Lattimore and CeeDee Lamb and Jaire Alexander and George Pickens, or the other way around, probably the other way around. Who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want to see that on Sunday nights? Come on, folks, let's keep this thing going. Now, when we look at the Ravens, however, I'm calling you, I'm texting you, I'm DMing you, I'm FaceTiming you, I'm Instagram calling you, I'm Facebook messaging you. I am trying to communicate with you as best as I possibly can, because you know why? If you do this, your team is complete. You'll have Marlon Humphrey, Nate Wiggins, Jaire Alexander. And then you'll have Kyle Hamilton, Malachi Starks, Roquan Smith, Trenton Simpson. Then you'll have the defensive line. And then when you look over with the offense, you have Derrick Henry, you'll have Lamar, you'll have the receivers, you'll have the tight ends. Why wouldn't you want that? Not to mention, Lamar is your guy. Come on now. We're connecting the pieces. We're connecting the pieces. Here's another team that I feel like should definitely be interested, and that is the Vikings. For one, the cap space may be a little bit funky with 20.6 million, but who cares? Because guess what? If you get him and you pair him with everybody else on this defense, chaos. Absolute chaos. Not to mention, you're still in your division. You can go up against the Packers twice. 2 times you can go and make big plays against the Packers, and every single time you make a big play, you can point in Mark Murphy's direction. Who wouldn't want to see that? Who wouldn't want to do that? Just saying. Yes, I love chaos, all right? I love revenge games. I love when players enact their revenge against their old team. It's the greatest thing to see. Now, if I'm the Chiefs, however, I may have to move some money around because we only have 11.2 million in cap space, but I think pairing Jaire with Trent McDuffie would be great. Not to mention, your division got a lot more difficult. The Chargers are a legitimate threat. The Raiders, you can't sleep on. And the Broncos are going to give you a run for your money. So I would pick up the phone and I would probably inquire about Jaire Alexander. Another team that I think that definitely needs to be talked about is the Rams. Granted, they only have 20.1 million in cap space, but they do need to address the secondary. And I do know that there is legitimate interest between them and Jalen Ramsey. But if I'm the GM, why would I give up future assets when I can just sign somebody who's a free agent? You can give Jaire a 2-year, $10 million deal. You can give him a 1-year, $5 million deal. You can give him the vet minimum if you really wanted to. But you have to address the secondary with a veteran-proven corner. Now, granted, they do have Akello Witherspoon, but, I mean, this is Jaire Alexander we're talking about. And this is no disrespect to Akello, because I actually like Akello Witherspoon. But come on now. Jaire Alexander, Akello Witherspoon, with that defensive line and that offense, greatness. Absolute greatness. The final team that I will talk about, just so I can ruffle feathers with this fan base, is the Steelers. I've seen a lot of people that are saying, why would the Steelers want to go after Jaire Alexander? Because you only have 2 corners that you can rely on right now. Outside of those 2 corners, there is nobody else that you can rely on. So why wouldn't you want to make a move and shoring up the secondary even more by getting a proven talent in Jaire Alexander? Because let's be real here. God forbid if anything crazy happens to Darius Slay or Joey Porter Jr., you're going to be right where you have been for the past 5+ years, which is, guess what? Trying to nickel and dime and piecemeal the secondary, which you don't want to do. And not to mention, this would address corner after this season, which we all know that most likely Darius Slay is going to retire after the season. There's probably a few more teams that comes to mind, but Those are the main teams that if I'm their GM, I am seriously inquiring about Jaire Alexander just because there's a lot of upside to his game. And by doing so, that would instantly be an upgrade for your secondary, which you really do need. And I already know there are people that are saying, well, he has attitude issues and that might be a problem. Well, let me ask you something. If you can deal with attitude issues with a running back or wide receiver or tight end or pass rusher or inside linebacker or another corner or any other position on your team, then you can deal with someone like a Jaire Alexander. And the number one way to deal with someone like a Jaire Alexander is you have to have a locker room structure that is able to deal with their personalities. Case in point, the Eagles. The Eagles have a lot of personality in their locker room, but you know what? They have structure in that locker room that is able to negate the personalities. If I was to put on my Bagwell Dominus hat, my guess is he will come to a decision fairly soon. Now, am I saying that's going to be by the end of this week? No. Do I think it's probably going to be a 2 or 3 week decision? Most likely. I think before training camp for a lot of teams, he will have come to a decision. Because you don't want to miss training camp. You want to try to put as much time in with your team so that you are able to develop a lot of chemistry with everybody and you understand the system. Now, on to the final topic that we have to talk about is how will this move affect Jalen Ramsey's situation? As we all know, Jalen Ramsey is still trying to find a way out of Miami, and so far there hasn't been no resolution. I do know Ian Rappaport said yesterday that the team has already informed Jalen Ramsey that he doesn't have to attend mandatory minicamp, which is significant because every team wants their players to attend mandatory minicamp, even though it's only just for 3 days. So when we look at the contract for Jalen Ramsey, okay, his cap hit this year is $16.6 million. Next year is $25 million. The year after that is $26.8 million. And the year after that it's $36.1 million. His dead cap hits, though, are $49.4 million, $18.4 million, $11.7 million, and $4.9 million. If I'm Jalen Ramsey, I am calling the front office and I'm trying to have a meeting as soon as possible because I want this thing to be resolved, because right now, Jaire Alexander is the number one free agent available. And so the longer that his situation goes out, the worse it's going to be for you, because you know why? All the teams that were interested in Jalen Ramsey are now going to shift their attention to Jaire Alexander, because why? That could be a more cheaper option than just giving up future assets for Jalen Ramsey. Let's be real here, folks. The Dolphins are going to have to take this contract on the chin because this is a bad structured contract. And nobody is going to be willing to give up high enough compensation in order to negate any guarantees or any large cap hits that they're going to have to take on. So either you just do a buyout for Jalen Ramsey, you release him, you have to figure out some common ground between you and Jalen Ramsey to just end this. Because right now, you don't want this story to continue to linger into training camp. You want this to be resolved ASAP. At some point, someone's going to have to be the adult. Someone's going to have to be the bigger person, come together and try to figure out the best solution for both sides. Because right now, the longer that this draws out, the more it favors a team that is interested in trading for Jalen Ramsey. Because right now, if you're the Dolphins, you can't ask for a first, a second, a third, or a fourth. At best, you could probably get maybe a conditional fifth that may turn into a fourth based off of certain incentives. But most likely, you'll probably be taking on maybe a 5th or 6th round pick. Or better yet, just do a player swap. But this is what happens when you do bad contracts. And I understand that you needed to do what you had to do in order to facilitate the trade for Jalen Ramsey. But still, look what it put you in. It's the same thing with Tyreek Hill. And I know I said this in the previous episode, but I'm going to say it again. You gave those two players unnecessary extensions. And now look, you have 2 contracts that no one is going to want to inherit. But the Dolphins have been doing bad business for I don't know how long. But I'm going to end this episode here. If you guys like what you are listening, please make sure you guys download the episodes, share the episodes with somebody else that you think is a football junkie. Now, for my audio listeners, make sure you guys download the episodes and leave a 5-star five-star review on anywhere and everywhere that you listen to podcasts, as well as leave a review if you can. Please, I would definitely appreciate that. Now, for my YouTube people, make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, turn that notification bell on, leave a comment down below on any of the topics that I have discussed in this episode, as well as any other episodes. Let me know your thoughts. Let's have a real healthy discussion, all right? For my YouTube people, Football Junkies Pod, all right? Football Junkies Pod. When you go on our YouTube, we have a link tree. The link tree will take you to anywhere and everywhere that we have Football Junkies content. For my online listeners, Football Junkies Podcast, all right? Football Junkies Podcast. Go on Google, type in RSS feed Football Junkies Podcast, and it'll pull up our official page for all of the episodes that we have, as well as bonus episodes. Now, when you go on there, there's different listening platforms that we are available on. Now, for my TikTok people, Football Junkies Pod, all right? Football Junkies Pod. I just posted a clip yesterday, and I will be posting some clips fairly soon. Now, for my Instagram people, Football_Junkies Pod, all right? Football_Junkies Pod. Junkies Pod is now what? It is together, not spaced, all right? It is together, not spaced. Football_Junkies Pod. Now, you can follow me on X at GMKale, GMKale, Kaile, as well as Blue Sky, GMKale, Kaile. As always, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys need. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys for your continuing support. Thank you guys for sharing the episodes, interacting with the episodes, as well as the content on all of our platforms. I love you guys very much. And this is your GM Kale signing out. Peace and love later. Hey, you never know. There may be some more news by the time this episode is out. Who knows?